Many people assume that the most psychologically difficult state in life is failure. It is not. In practice, one of the most destabilizing psychological states I repeatedly observe is success without direction. A particular group of adults experiences something very strange. They're not depressed, they're not anxious, they're not medically unwell, yet they wake up with a very clear internal perception. There is no point to anything I am doing. These are often individuals who have objectively succeeded, and oftentimes early in life. They built companies, they achieved financial independence, they rose quickly in demanding careers, and after reaching what they spent years pursuing, they discover something deeply disorienting. The expected psychological change does not occur. They thought achievement would produce stability. Instead, it produced silence. And that silence is frightening. For most of their life, their internal structure was organized around pursuit. Deadlines, competition, growth, targets. The brain had a simple rule: effort moves life forward. Then suddenly effort no longer changes anything meaningful. Income increases do not change daily experience. Status improvements do not change identity. More possessions do not alter the internal state. This creates a condition I would describe as a loss of trajectory. Not sadness, not burnout, loss of trajectory. Human beings tolerate stress remarkably well if they perceive direction. They tolerate very long working hours, they tolerate uncertainty, they tolerate risk. What they do not tolerate well is directionless. Because the brain is not primarily a reward organ, it is a prediction organ. Much of our motivation is not about pleasure, it is about anticipating a future state that is different from the present. For years, the person had a future that felt meaningfully different from today. Then, after success, the future begins to look psychologically identical to the present. At that point, the mind starts searching for substitutes, and almost always the first substitute is stimulation. More restaurants, more travel, more experiences, more social novelty, more relationships, more consumption. This is not a moral failure. It is an orientation attempt. The nervous system is trying to recreate forward movement by increasing intensity. But intensity is not the same as direction. Stimulation produces a temporary activation. It does not produce the trajectory. So the stimulation must be repeated and then increased. And very quickly, the person notices something uncomfortable. Pleasure works, but only briefly, and afterward the same question returns: what is the point of continuing this? Many people interpret this as depression. It often is not. Depression is characterized by reduced capacity for engagement. This is different. These individuals can engage very well. They simply no longer believe engagement leads anywhere meaningful. This, for them, creates a specific form of distress, not emotional pain, but rather existential friction. Life continues, but without psychological movement. What is important to understand is that achievement-oriented individuals built their identity on progress. Their sense of self was tied to moving towards something. When the toward disappears, their identity destabilizes. They often say, "I thought once I got here, things would make sense." But reaching the target did not produce more meaning, it rather removed structure. For years, their environment imposed structure: school, career advancement, financial goals, competition. These provided externally defined objectives. Once those are gone, a new task appears that many people were never trained to do: self-directed orientation. And this is profoundly different from striving. Striving answers the question, how do I win? Orientation answers the question, why am I moving at all? And the second question is much harder because external success cannot answer it. Money solves constraints. It does not solve direction. Status solves access. It does not solve identity. Comfort helps remove hardship, but it does not generate meaning. So the individual attempts of horizontal expansion do not work. They get more of the same categories: more business projects, more entertainment, more travel, more consumption, yet each additional layer produces less psychological effect. This happens not because the person is ungrateful, but because the brain adapts extremely quickly to stable conditions. The reward system responds strongly to change, not possession, and once life stabilizes at a high level, rewards lose predictive value and the mind begins to ask a question it avoided for years. What is this for? This is not a philosophical luxury, it's a biological necessity. Humans require perceived direction to maintain motivation. Without it, effort feels irrational. When effort feels irrational, behavior fragments, sleep destabilizes, attention fades, impulsivity increases. Not because of poor character, but because orientation systems are inactive. Many people in this situation try to solve the problem with activity. They stay busy, they start new ventures, they optimize routines, they intensify physical training, they even get deeply into charity, helping others. Sometimes this helps, temporarily, but activity is not direction. This busyness only suppresses our internal questions. It does not answer them. And of course, there is no laboratory test for this, no scan, no biomarker, no single diagnosis. It is a mismatch between external achievement and internal orientation, and it often happens in individuals who from outside look exceptionally successful. The reason I'm discussing this is not to provide a solution or a philosophy. It is rather to name a pattern. Many people privately experience this and conclude something is wrong with them. Often nothing is wrong with them medically, they simply have reached a stage of life where externally imposed goals no longer organize behavior, and now they must develop internally defined direction. Understanding this developmental transition changes how one interprets the experience. Instead of "my life has no meaning," it now becomes "the structure that guided my earlier life no longer exists." Those are very different statements. The first produces despair, the second produces a task. And the task is not to increase stimulation or eliminate responsibility. It is rather to decide what effort is now for. No doctor can provide you with that answer, but recognizing the condition prevents misinterpreting it as illness or as your personal failure. Of course, if someone feels persistently low, hopeless, or unable to function, this is something to discuss directly with a treating clinician, because medical and psychiatric conditions must always be properly evaluated. But many individuals I am describing are functioning well. They simply feel unanchored. Naming the experience does not solve it, but it restores orientation to the problem itself. And sometimes understanding what's happening is the first step toward deciding consciously what to do next.